on, or all your just like.
Yeah, we'll do poll. Try and do some more. We'll do poll and stuff on. Yeah. Okay, so we should be recording now, and.
It's gone now.
Ethan, can you see yourself?
I can see your arm.
Where's that?
Oh,
Your arm's right by Ezra's head, like
Yeah,
right
I can
that
see
way.
myself.
Move your head that way.
I'm in like some very
Oh, I
corner.
just see my thought.
James,
Yeah.
we thought you missed Halo.
Yeah.
Does it say loading?
Yeah, it says loading.
Okay. I don't know why it's taking so long to load.
You should probably press the allow button.
Oh.
You should probably press the hide button. Okay.
Oh.
Where are you?
I am
Right here.
$6.
Oh, you're behind us, right?
Oh, I see it.
Not all around you, where they hit
Oh,
Oh,
All right,
where?
we're gonna try it one more time and see. There we go. Hey. All right, so I just want a little bit of some of this. You probably have you maybe not have learned all this yet, but like so after World War I, the World War I was ended with the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in 1919 by everybody involved, and Germany came out on the losing end of that baby, and the stipulations for Germany post World War I were pretty tough. So they had to pay like in the neighborhood of $400 billion, today's money of $400 billion in war reparations. Their military could only have like 10,000 people in it. They had to give back a ton of land. So Germany, just after World War I, was in kind of a tough spot, at least economically, because of how much they had to pay. And a lot of people were upset with the conditions, but when you're on the losing end, you don't really have any say in things. So in the 1920s, though, just like in America, you had the Roaring *20s, you had the same type of thing here. So the economy is going really well, and Mr. Nicholas, can you turn off your mic because I'm like hearing myself talk.
Okay, it's going off now.
Okay. All right. So, like in the 1920s, the economy here was roaring just like it was in America. So that allowed the Germans to pay back part of that $400 billion that they had to pay. They also had like a republic was formed called the Weimar Republic, and so this was like very much like democracy. And they had political pluralism, so it was a parliamentary system. So they had like 45 different political parties, one of which was the Nazis. But the Nazi Party in the 20s didn't really have a lot of power. It was one of many, many parties. So things are going okay, and then, as we all know, Great Depression hits Germany. Like everywhere else, their economy's in shambles. Like their unemployment was actually worse than the United States unemployment. And they couldn't pay back all of their obligations, right? So they couldn't pay back the money. People are unemployed. Everybody's upset. So it was a really ripe situation for Adolf Hitler to come in, because he basically said, okay, we're going to, one, straight up not pay back what we're supposed to. Like, we're just not going to do it. Two, we're going to get land back that we lost, especially in the East, which happens to be Poland, where I'm sitting. Because he feels like there was too many people in Germany and not enough land anymore, and that they were going to get the economy back on track. So this all sounded good to people, and things are really bad. So they listened pretty well. So this is the Reichstag, and this is the German Parliament. It's currently the Parliament again, but it wasn't between when World War II ended and 2000, when East and West Germany united, but it was when World War II broke out and beforehand. So in 1933, when Hitler rises to power, this is where it all kind of goes down. And Hitler blamed a communist for setting fire to this building. And we don't think actually the communists did it. He was just kind of a scapegoat. for communists more broadly that Hitler hated. And so Hitler blamed this communist for burning the building down. And at this point, Hitler's only the chancellor. He still has the president of Germany to deal with. So he goes to the president of Germany, whose name is Hindenburg, and he says, these communists, they're going to take over. They just burned the Reichstag, which they didn't. And we need to take care of it. And, Hindenburg, he's like a World War I vet. He's old. He's in bad health. He's like, well, what should we do, And Hitler's like, just leave it to me. Sign this paper and I'll take care of it. Well, the paper was basically giving Hitler all the power, right? So he became president and chancellor at the same time, which led the way to him doing everything he did. And then so Hitler does what he does best. And this is a memorial to members of the parliament that Hitler then had murdered, right? So like January 1933, he takes over basically because the place burned. He blames the communists. And then the Nazis round up all these members of the parliament and have them murdered. And you can kind of see at the top there on these pieces of metal are the names of the people that were killed. So the war goes on, right? We know a lot of that history. And then by 1945, the Russians are on the doorstep, and the Germans know they're going to lose. And so, things kind of come to an end. I put a video up on my YouTube that talks more about Russia's involvement in the final days. So you guys can watch that. But this is where Hitler's bunker was, or is, buried underneath this parking lot now. The picture on the left is kind of the area that his entire bunker was. It was way underground, and then it had like 5-meter thick concrete, which is about 30 feet of concrete as a ceiling. And this is where Hitler's final days were spent. The picture on the right is the spot where they think Hitler's body and that of his girlfriend / wife for a couple hours were burned by his officers, because he told them once he killed himself, his wife, she killed herself with cyanide, and he shot himself in the head, and he wanted his body burned. But it's really hard to burn a body. You have to get the fire up very hot. So they had to run around to try and find enough gasoline to do it. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories on whether, Hitler escaped Argentina, Hitler didn't actually kill himself, yada, yada, yada. But most likely that's kind of the spot where where his body was burned. So I asked the people, I'm like, well, why is this not like a memorial to the bad things that happened or whatever? And it turns out that, a couple things. One is when Germany was split up, Berlin was split up too. We'll talk about that in a second. And what used to be the center of Berlin, which is where all this was, where all the Nazis had all their stuff, now became like the periphery of the new sections of Berlin. So this is like the edge of the East German section and the edge of the Western section. So people just kind of let it go. And the second reason was they didn't want to create like a shrine to Hitler so that it would be kind of a mecca for people, neo-Nazis and things to come to. So so they put in a parking lot. But since that happened in like the 80s, Germany's come a long way in like embracing being open and honest with what they did in the war. So I think if this would have happened, if this would have happened, now, this would have been something, but instead it's a parking lot. This is the memorial to all the Russian soldiers who died. And again, in the video, it talks more about it. But basically, about 2,500 Russian soldiers died in the Battle of Berlin. To the right of this is what's today like a memorial park, but used to be a mass grave. So the Russians really just dumped all those soldiers in a big hole and filled it over. But then Stalin made this war memorial, kind of it as a stick it in your eye. See the black thing kind of down in front? It's covered by flowers right now, but that's actually marble that was taken out of Hitler's office and put into the memorial. So interestingly, I was here on May 10th, and the armistice was signed on May 8th. That's VE Day. But It was signed late at night, and by that time it was already the 9th in Russia. And so it celebrated May 9th there. And all kinds of Russians came to Berlin to remember this victory. And I was there on the 10th. So these are all the flowers that they laid there. And it was the 70th anniversary, so it was pretty big. There was a lot going on over here. And the president of Israel was in Berlin when I was there, meeting with the German president and chancellor too. Again, you know, the Israeli and German thing dealing with the war. So it's still going on. So just real quickly, after the war, or actually right before the war ended, all the Allied leaders met at Yalta in February, and the war ends in May. So they knew they were going to win, and they were deciding how they were going to break up and deal with Germany. So they determined basically two things. One being that the whole country of Germany was going to be split up, and then the city of Berlin was going to be split up. And it was going to be divided between the Allies, and within that, the Soviets were going to get a chunk, and then France, Britain, and the US were going to get a chunk. So the same happened for the country, as did the city of Berlin. And then the Berlin Wall doesn't actually go up until 1961. So like between roughly 48, 49 and 1961, there's like no real like wall, like people are going back and forth. You know, you live in East Germany or East Berlin and you work in West Berlin, and people went back and forth, but then those things changed. So this is just a little picture. The left is like Germany as a whole, right? So you can see the Soviets took the eastern side, and the democracy took the west. But then you can see within like the eastern side, Berlin is completely surrounded by that. So Berlin was broken up so that the west side of Berlin was democratic and the east side was communist. So it was like this little bit of this island of democracy amongst the sea of communism. So on the left is the Berlin Wall. It went up in 1961, and I've got a video of this too that I'm going to try and upload today. But this is the longest part that's still there, and the area to the left of the wall is West Berlin. The area to the to the right of it would have been East Berlin, and where that green grass is what was called the Death Strip. So when you see the video, you'll see that there were several other barriers in between this wall and the first wall far to what would be to the right if you're looking at the picture. And this was called the Death Strip because you had to, if you were going to try to escape, you had to get from that wall and over this wall, which didn't work out very well. 140 some people were killed or whatever. And then on the right are the huge concrete semicircles they placed on top of the wall to prevent people from climbing over, because you can't get a very good grip that way. Here's just another picture of the wall, and this is the longest part of the wall that's still existing. You can kind of see how tall it is relative to that person down there on the far right hand side. And then if you just look at like the telephone poles on the other side, like this is hard. This is like 15 feet tall. So it was not easy to get over, and it's kind of been reclaimed now. And so all of the graffiti on there is kind of accepted. It's not necessarily seen as like they're defiling it or anything. People come here and graffiti it a lot, so it's pretty normal. Then this is just like a picture of looking through. So this would be looking from the east into the west, and I just kind of like imagine people being able to see through the wall, and like freedom is like right there, but you can't get to it, and how demoralizing and frustrating that must have been for people in the East. And then once it was split up in 1961, this is like one of the most famous places in Berlin. This is called Checkpoint Charlie. So this is if you were going to go into the American sector of Berlin, you had to stop here first by this checkpoint. And now it's a tourist trap, so you can go get your picture taken and get your passport stamped at Checkpoint Charlie and all that kind of stuff. But you know, back in the day, this is a pretty important point, because there's a main entry into the western part the American side of the western part of Berlin. And the sign to the right just says, tells you that you're leaving the American sector and going back into Eastern Berlin. And then the left-hand side is where the wall used to be. So running throughout the entire city is either this metal strip or then bricks of where the wall used to be. So I'm basically straddling the left and the right, or the west and the east. And then here's the Zimmerman Street, which I was actually right. The wall ran right along Zimmerman Street. So, and then this is just the Brandenburg Gate. So these gates were built in like the 1700s to lead into the center of Berlin, and there were like 14 of them. And this is the only one that's left. It was pretty heavily damaged in the war. In fact, Berlin was like completely destroyed during the war by the bombs that they dropped. And I learned they dropped 3 kinds of bombs. Like the first bomb they dropped were just regular blow up stuff bombs. And this, when I say they, I mean the Allies. So Germans, Soviets, British coordinated their bombings. So the first bombs they dropped just blew things up. Second bombs they dropped right after that were fire bombs. And the purpose of those was, once they exploded, they created these huge fires which sucked up all the oxygen, which then would suffocate people. So their intent was to kill people by suffocation. And then the third bomb that they dropped, the third wave, would drop time bombs. So the bombs would fall, but they wouldn't detonate for 30 minutes afterwards. The idea being, once people came out of their hiding places after they thought the bombing is over, then the bombs would explode and kill more people. So this is like a pretty famous spot in Berlin. And then you can see over on the left-hand side is the American flag. So that's the American embassy. So somehow America ends up with like some pretty prime real estate for our embassy. They actually just built the embassy in 2008, so it's pretty new and it's pretty slick looking from the outside. It's guarded by Marines, so I didn't get very close. They got big guns. So that is that. You guys got any questions?
So did we run our sector, or do you just okay, Germany, you run it?
We ran it.
Okay.
And so we would have people, our military would be stationed there. And at least initially we ran it. And then Western Germany became unified. So those 3 sections, the French, British, and German section, became one democratic Western Germany. So we got out. In terms of running things, that happened like the 70s, and then when communism fell, then West Germany and East Germany became the Germany we know today, which they call reunification. Good question.
Thanks.
Anything else, my loves?
How is the Starbucks coffee in Germany?
About the same. Did you hear I had to go to Starbucks to talk to one class?
Yep.
Yeah. It's about the same as here. It's kind of sad that you have to go to Starbucks to get good Wi-Fi, but guess they're onto something. It wasn't any different tasting, I couldn't tell, but maybe it was, and I don't have a refined palate for coffee.
I have a question.
Okay.
Does the grant money pay for just your traveling and then you pay for your food, or do they hand you $10,000 less than that and say, hey, have fun?
Having fun.
They paid for everything.
That's so sweet.
So when I had to submit my grant proposal, I had to include
Meal plan.
housing, food, everything. So yeah, the grant pays for everything.
So I'm gonna become a world history teacher so I can take a trip.
For this one? Yeah, I know.
After that, I'll resign.
It's pretty awesome. I honestly have to pinch myself sometimes that you're doing. People, can you guys still see me?
Yes.
There's no chair in this hotel room, so I'm sitting on my bed. I had to adjust. The people that I talk to, you strike up a conversation. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? they're like amazed by this whole thing, you know, like that I'm here and you're there and I'm still teaching you and you're learning what I'm learning. I mean, it's just a really amazing opportunity. So I'm glad that we both get to be a part of it in some fashion or other. But like I was having dinner last night and I was like, I just couldn't even believe that I was where I was, you know, like it was so like romantic kind of, like it was like the square was pretty much darkened, you know, and the outside, the lights were kind of low. There were like a bunch of people sitting around the outside of it, you know, having dinner. And so it was dark, but it was kind of light where I was sitting. And so you couldn't hear the saxophone player. So it's just like this guy playing saxophone kind of off in the distance. You couldn't see him, but you could hear it. I mean, it was right out of a friggin' movie. I swear. Take a video of it, but you couldn't see anything. So it was just sound. But yeah, so it's pretty neat.
Oh, yay.
What do you miss most about the U.S.?
My wife.
Jocelyn. Oh,
I literally just thought that one.
I thought it was gonna
Yeah.
be mine. Oh, that's fine.
It wasn't Jocelyn, that's for sure. And that's about it, honestly. I guess I miss like knowing people. You know, like here I meet people, but I don't have like, it's like I talked a little bit about in my blog, like people coming in and out of your life for like 10 minutes. I don't have anybody like constant. So that's just kind of different. I got you guys. Yeah. I was riding home on the tram today from Schindler's Thing, and I thought that. I was like, I'm excited to go talk to them because they're kind of the constant, you know, like that you'll be with me the whole time, at least till school's out. And then my wife will be here, so I'll have some people constantly the whole time.
Yeah.
I'll
Have you talked to your wife?
Yeah, we Skyped last night. But like, it was, you know what my bedtime is. So I stayed up till midnight here. Yeah, and we Skyped for about 15 minutes. And it was a lot better because the internet was so bad in Germany that we couldn't Skype or talk on video. So we went like 3 or 4 days without actually talking to one another face to face. So it was nice to see her. She said it's finally cold there.
Yeah.
It went down to like 50 yesterday.
Yeah. She said it was pretty miserable. Yesterday was like rainy and dreary and.
There was gonna be
It's gonna be a what?
a NATO.
We had like 10% chance of tornado. Like
Today?
Like for a
Yesterday.
tornado. To be NATO.
Oh, a NATO. Is that all the cool people call it? A NATO?
No, I'm just trying to make it
NATO.
slang.
Slang. Slang.
Yes, I was thinking of like.
NATO.
So where do you go to after like Senegal?
After Senegal, I'd go to South Africa,
Cool.
down in the tip.
There's the things
Cape Town.
Are you gonna get a new talking stick? What are you gonna bring back to your classroom?
So I've gotten a couple things already. I got so one thing I went to when I was in Bayeux was like the tapestry museum. So I got a like scale model version of the tapestry. It's like like accordions out. So I'm gonna bring that back. Apparently, I bought a piece of the Berlin Wall. If it really is, but we're gonna go with it. So I got a piece of the Berlin Wall to bring back, and
It's a rock.
lots of pictures.
It's a wall in
I'm gonna look for some stuff here in Poland. Everything I buy, I have to carry with me. So that, like, you know,
You bring an empty suitcase full of like 4 souvenirs, like.
I might have to do that. When I lived in England, I actually had to buy a suitcase to bring back all the souvenirs I bought everybody. And then it got lost.
Oh, no.
I got it back eventually, but it was like one time. Sometime when we were not on this, I'll tell you the story. It was a completely ridiculous story of how I finally got my bag back. But so I think I'm talking to you guys again on Friday. Is that right, Mr. Nikolic?
What's that?
Am I talking to these guys again on Friday?
Yeah, talking on Friday now. Since we got, I think, about 7 people going tomorrow, roughly, for the AP. So we're not going to be able to start Schindler until probably
Okay.
Monday then? Is that where?
Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
Is that fine with you? I use tomorrow as a work day, and because I figured Friday you're probably going to take the whole period like today. So.
Yeah, because I'll have gone to audits and a couple other things by then, so I'll have more stuff to present.
That's gonna be so sad.
So you guys
Yeah.
have some good questions for Friday about.
Like, I would say I'm so excited for you to go to Auschwitz, but I'm just not.
I'm not excited. Like I'm not excited either. Like today was actually a downer. Like going to Schindler's place. I mean, I love learning it, but it just is like it's not a happy. It's a lot of size. You know, like you read something and you're like, oh, can't even imagine. But we have to learn so that we prevent it from happening again. That's
Gotta stop judging, okay? I just love Israel.
Any last minute AP tests?
Marry a
tips?
Jewish person.
Yeah. Study.
I'm gonna marry a
Good
Don't don't do the DBQ first because you'll waste all people tend to waste their time on the DBQ, like waste too much time, and then they don't have time for like the other 2 essays. So don't start with the DBQ. Like get the comparative one out of the way, and it's a little easier to earn points in the other 2 than it is the DBQ. So do those first, and truly tonight study those cheat sheets I gave you on how to write your free response questions, and then when you go in tomorrow, like go in with a strategy to each one. Like, okay, make sure I do this so that I get the point. Make sure I do that so I get the point. You know.
Remember your training. It will not
Okay, guys, I gotta plug my computer in because it's about to die.
Bye.
I'll see you Friday.
You gonna do the next class, or how do you want to do the rest of the day? Just this is the only class you wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
I'll talk to some of the others at least for a little bit. I should probably talk to my world history classes in the afternoon because I haven't talked to them since last week.
Yeah, they were asking.
Okay.
So the next 2 AP Gov, you want to touch base with them a little bit, or?
I'll just wait till Friday because they're watching Schindler's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just let that play, and then Friday I'll spend the whole block with them.
Okay, I'll let them know. And then expect you for 5th period. We'll start at 12:42.
Okay.
Local here, so.
Okay, so I'll chime in a little bit after that, after you got attendance taken and stuff.
Okay. We're doing that, and then we're doing the Mongol movie, so I'll help kind of.
Oh, cool.
Well, actually, are you still recording?
Yep. I'll stop recording and then we can talk.